Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our monthly discussion group. I'm joined as always by Michael Schneider. And today in July, we wanted to follow up on last month's discussion. We talked about negotiating and being proactive with your career. Now we kind of want to go to the other side of the conversation. If you are management or the owner of a company, how do you reduce turnover, retain talent? A lot has changed since the pandemic with a lot of the benefits and thinking. And I think as leaders and owners, you really need to stay current. So we really wanted to kind of dig into that discussion today.
Right. And something that was interesting, JR, was that a survey came out from the conference board that tracks things like employment satisfaction. This came out a couple months ago that showed that overall that employees are very satisfied with their jobs, and overall employment satisfaction has never been higher. And you look at the reasons why for that, it's really with the pandemic that people have been able to increase their wages with a sort of a very hot labor market that people are able to get more out of their jobs in order to stay where they are. And they've been taking advantage of that. So if you're in management or you are looking at your employees on how you want to motivate them to either stay, retain your talent, or just increase sort of their overall happiness at work, there are definitely some items that you can consider. Things we want to talk about today are, your monetary compensation structures, your non-monetary structures, and very important things like career path planning and just overall communication from managers to employees and owners throughout the organization. So when we look at your monetary compensation incentives, there's a few things that you can look at. The easy things are having a market or above market base salary, as well as finding individual and team bonuses that can allow individuals to achieve their goals, but also be motivated to work in collaboration with the entire team and see the success really drive from there. But I think the most important thing is really to have a simple plan and not really trying to overcomplicate things. So
when you think about that, Michael, I mean, having kind of worked on this for many, many years, overall, you learn along the way. And when you think about team bonuses, it's critical to have great compensation, but you really want to align the bonus incentive with your goals for either as a manager or as an owner, so that you really link the two together. So as your team members win with bonuses, it's achieving your long-term vision as an overall company or manager within that. And then the other thing, like you said, is just simple. I mean, you can get really creative with trying to link between this goal metric and that, and maybe some creative equity or linkage to certain things. And feedback across the board continues to be, keep it simple. I want to know along the way, where am I? So at the end of the year, if business is great, I want to know where my bonus is projecting toward based on the goal. Or if it happens to be a down year, if I'm planning for that and you're communicating those metrics along the way, you have less of a negative surprise. But again, I think those are two critical things. You want to link the bonus to the behaviors or goals overall, and just keep it simple. And more importantly, check the progress report throughout the year.
Absolutely. And I think what you're mentioning with unclear metrics, as you see, we've got that noted as a risk, is a very good thing that, a lot of people like certainty. And without having some of those communication touch points, that adding uncertainty to the mix, just leads to a lot of, maybe some uncomfortable feelings at work. But something else that's a risk when it comes to the monetary side of incentives are, when it comes to bonuses, that people feel that either expected versus earned. And what I mean by that is, if you are looking to, or say you're a business owner and year over year, you give people their full bonuses, but you happen to find or be in that 1 year where things really aren't so great. But you've been on a trajectory where people are expecting the full bonuses. If you don't give that to them, it does become a larger issue. So when it comes down to bonuses, there are some companies that have adopted a no bonus rule, where they really say, all right, well, I'm going to give a way above average or way above market average salary. It's kind of ties the bonus in, and that's a way to sort of reduce kind of that earned versus expected bonus risk that some employers do face.
Well, on top of that, Michael, too, how many times have we heard stories from people over the years where they're at a big firm, they outperformed, their manager outperformed, but their division in another part of the country underperformed, so that they didn't achieve their bonus, right? And there's such a disappointment at the end of the year. Whereas if that was the case, proper communication that the overall division was slipping throughout the year and try to pick things up eases some of that year-end tension where you're just surprised to the negative.
That's right. Now, if we switch over and talk about some of the non-monetary incentives, with, again, as we mentioned before, the post-pandemic world, from a work perspective is much, much different. And we have noticed that some of the big things people are looking for now, there's really those non-monetary, so those soft touch type areas of compensation. So things you want to think about are the ability to work from home, have flexible schedules in terms of working hours, and look for different team activities to improve morale, and something simple like increasing vacation time. Now, again, from our perspective, we've switched to pretty much a full hybrid work schedule where we're in the office Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm sorry, not Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, work from home. Monday and Friday, I apologize. And that's been a very, I think, helpful thing for us. It allows us to take care of some of the things that we want to do at home while getting all of our work done, but we're able to maintain the presence in the office. We're able to still see each other and really retain that camaraderie that I think is important that all teams have.
Well, on that, Michael, I think if most businesses would rewind 5 years ago and said, you're going to have people working from home at the level we have today, the assumption was productivity would drop off a cliff. People wouldn't be working. You'd just be staying at home. And with the pandemic, everybody's forced to do that for such a long period of time. You ended up in most cases finding the opposite. Productivity was higher, right? The output was better. The flexibility. I mean, I have 6 kids. A lot of people want the flexibility to go to their school in the middle of the day for 1 hour. And the reality is, when you're saving the travel time and everything else, team members are much more efficient. And then when you started the conversation, Michael, look at the employee satisfaction. I mean, that flexibility, working things through, leads to more output, more retention, and just higher value for majority of businesses. I think looking at many companies out there insisting on coming back from 9 to 5 or 8 to 4 every single day of the week, it's just difficult in this new era of trying to work with young families and with just the flexibility everybody's gotten used to over the last few years.
Right. And things like, work from home and flexible schedules, those are going to be things that are more, I'd say, a formalized type structure, whether it's in a contract or not. But one thing I really want to hit on that I think has been a great thing, at least for our team, are some of the activities that we do. I think it was last year we had a paper airplane contest, during lunch, and it was something that was completely non-work related, but it was something fun that everybody was able to participate in. And, it's a good thing that, is a way to improve culture, and that is just a little thing also to help break up the day and kind of re-energize people. So whether it's a paper airplane contest or something else, just those little types of things can help people along the way.
Well, and too, Michael, when you think about the increased vacation time, or for example, half-day Fridays every other day, or half-day Fridays in the summer, in general, the majority of businesses, or many businesses, Friday afternoon from 1 to 4, most people are checked out in the weekend anyway, right? In a lot of businesses. And I think when you start to look at the research, getting that extra half a day, having what feels like a little bit longer of a weekend, by the time Monday comes around, you're ready to go. You're more charged, you're more refreshed. And again, the productivity between those 4.5 days in many cases is just substantially better. So I think thinking about those as a business owner of that flexibility, you really will make it up in retention and output over time.
That's right. And as a business owner as well, one thing that really is really critical with your employees is to help them really define their career paths. I think one of the biggest issues that a lot of younger employees and even some older employees have is that they say, all right, where do I want to be in 5 years? And they might have an idea, but they don't really know how to get there. And there's some different areas that we can consider as a business owner, as a manager. And we have here that you've got your major and minor career paths to really define, have, a 3 to 5 year overall plan that has achievable milestones. And what we mean by that is that you want to have these little building blocks to really get you from point A to point B. Because if you start as, say, an analyst and you want to get to a director, there's a few different steps along the way. But you don't just do that overnight, or usually not even, not in a year. But what can you really do in those intermediate periods to, build upon yourself to get to those types of goals?
Well, and Michael, I've been a big believer on the major and minor concept. And when you think about the logic, when you go to college, you're generally 18 years old, you filled out a survey in high school, you're good at this and that. So you go to college at your strengths based on some test scores. And you go to school for 4 years, that's your major. And then maybe you have a minor that you have a few classes in. And then in many cases, most people follow that same logic to their career. So they took their major, they go into that certain area within a business, whether or not they like it or not, that's just what they've built toward. So looking at many businesses, how do you know if that's your passion, right? It's really hard to tell. So when you run a business, I think it's super helpful for backup within your company, as well as getting exposure. So maybe you did finance or economics undergraduate. Well, what if marketing is your passion? Using that backup, or kind of have finance as the initial role for your business or company, but then give team members exposure, sort of the minor concept, a little bit along the way. And what you find from time to time as you look at that 3 to 5 year plan or the milestones, in many cases, the passion is the minor, right? And if not, the worst case from your business is you have a backup. You have people that do other things along the way as people go out, vacation or other things, that you have backup. And the other thing I think that's important as you look at career path development, you look at succession, is really bringing your next gen leadership along the way. And there's a lot of discussion around, I think the terminology is ghost board, where in effect you bring exposure where maybe not a voting role per se, but you're letting next gen leadership hear the conversation, hear the planning along the way. So as they build, they're hearing the knowledge, they know what's happening with the business. And then ultimately you can see the development and promote to the long term, where they will be the decision maker, and having that kind of baby step along the way, so to speak, of getting the exposure, I think is super helpful.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think the key to all this is that you want to have really open lines of communication as a business owner, as a manager, with your team, with your employees. And I think it's a great way of having open communication to really build a good culture, have a sense that people, aren't afraid to ask questions. And I loved when I first started with the team, a little over 11 years ago now, that, for, you, Gene, Ming, doors were never closed. If I had a question, I could come in and ask, and there was never any sense of I can't talk to you. You guys are the partners, and I'm not. But just to build that kind of solid, a solid sort of welcoming culture is very important. And I think one of the keys is communication.
Well, and on that topic, Michael, in the era of the flexible work schedule, the work from home, the communication, the accountability is more important than ever, right? Metrics. Because again, any manager or any owner's fear is people are at home watching TV or taking a nap on the couch, right? And you can protect your business and keep everything in line by proper communication, good metrics, lots of check-ins along the way. And I think it's more critical than ever. And then on top of it, with the proper communication, where you stand within the company, where you stand within your role, what you need to get to the next level. Right, whether it's extra education, extra credentials, right? These discussions go a long way to do that, because management is such a critical role as a leader. I remember clearly when I was at Kellogg with finishing my MBA, and one of the leadership courses, you had a CEO speaking about how they use their time, right? And he said it was 80-20. 80% of his time was spent managing his team, career path development, managing the managers, and only 20% of the time was on customers and vision of the company. And I think it was a little bit extreme when I heard at the time, but looking to where things are, I think it's a good mindset. You really need great communication with your team, with your managers throughout your organization. And it just goes a long way to have great retention and long-term success.
Right. And I think another part of the retention component is to really have that real-time praise and recognition, that when somebody does a really good job, whether it's an internal project or something external with a client, that we can make a big deal out of it. Let them know that what they did was important, why it was important, and share the success with the team. I just think that kind of feel-good attitude, really kind of helps solidify, loyalty to the team as well. That you want to be at a place where you know that you're valued.
Well, and with that, Michael, just simple praise with, a spa gift or tickets to a ball game or simple things to reward on the spot, recognize it, and a little bit of reward. I think those go, together and have a long way to go. And from a business standpoint, it's a very small item on your P&L, but from the retention and support and long-term benefit, it's a big win.
That's right.
So with that, like I said, I think that concludes our conversation. Thought it was interesting to take kind of both sides, whether you don't have this type of communication or collaboration. Last month talking about staying on top of where things are and take control of your career. And then the other side where you're struggling with retention or the turnover that's occurred in many cases in the last number of years. I think there's a lot of good content or conversation that you can consider to really solidify your retention and continue to have long-term success of the business. So with that, I want to thank you for tuning in.
All right, thank you, everybody.